So talking about our ecosystem, you can't really go into all the details here. We have about 49 different business units at our company. So it's quite complicated for people outside of China to really understand what we do because we do so much. I'll just try to give you a small taste of that. We started as a B2B platform, Alibaba.com. We expanded into a C2C platform with Taobao. Taobao is the largest C2C platform in the world. Then we went to B2C as we saw people looking for great brands on the platform. We do B2B2C, C2B. This is one of my favorite ones. This is consumers telling business, this is what I want, be it a single serving Oreo or anything else. C2B. We do travel services with our online travel marketplace, Fliggy. We do payment services with Alipay, which has over 1 billion active users using it, 800 million of those in China. We do cloud services. We do food delivery services with Kube. We do logistics. In fact, logistics is perhaps a good example. We don't own our own warehouses. We don't own fleets of planes and trucks as many e-commerce providers do because we saw from the beginning that would not be scalable. There are over 1.5 million people every day in China delivering our packages. Those are not our employees. These are people working for the many, many partner companies who we connect through our logistics network named China. So we see our logistics network not as a physical platform, but actually as a logistics algorithm. It optimizes with all this data to say, what's the best way to get the package from A to Z? Which provider can take over which step along the way? So that's how we approach many, many things. Throughout all of these platforms that I've been showing you, we use AI in every possible way you could think of. AI permeates how we do things. We are a data-driven company. We use technology and that data really to try to improve the consumer experience with our partners. So that's the way to think about what we do. Technology company, using things like AI, using data to work with our partners to improve the consumer experience. The good news for you is you don't need to remember all of these different things we do. What I would love you to remember is the one thing that ties them all together, which is our mission, which is to make it easy to do business anywhere. That's really the red line that ties all the different things we do together. So talking about innovation, the future of retail, our topic for today and in the panel afterwards, one of the things when I think about innovation in retail, the recommendation engine. So I think everyone has experienced this. I first experienced it back in 1996 when I first started buying on Amazon. The functionality of if you buy these books, you'll probably like these books. If you listen to this music, you may enjoy this music. If you like this TV show, you may like that TV show. Everyone uses this. I would see this as one of the types of AI that permeates retail today. But what's interesting is I don't think most consumers think of this as AI. We just see it as like, that makes sense. I guess someone could figure out if I buy these kind of books, if I listen to this kind of music, that I probably might like these ones. So it doesn't seem like the secret AI thing that might actually concern a consumer. It seems very normal. But this is AI in its most common, normal sense. But when I think about innovation in the space of retail, actually for me, the cutting edge of innovation today in retail is this. This is a mom and pop shop in China. Before I explain why that is the cutting edge of innovation, I need to step back though and talk a little bit about the transformation of the Chinese consumer. So the Chinese consumer has had a very different situation than any consumer in Europe or in America or in the Western world. For those of us who grew up here in Europe or in America, we grew up being surrounded by brands. We grew up being exposed to every kind of product in a brand-driven advertising space. Our parents bought this type of detergent. Our families drove this type of car. So although the cars we drive today look different and our parents didn't have smartphones, we actually grew up experiencing the world in a way that was driven by brands. The Chinese of the past generation did not, because their parents did not have access to brands in the way that we do. And that has given China a very different perspective to discovering the brand world in the retail space. Fast forward to today, The Chinese consumer of this generation is the most sophisticated, best informed, most demanding consumer in the world. They have complete access to products from all over the world and to data about those products, but they do not have the reference point that most of us did of saying, of course I buy that brand. This is what this brand stands for. This is important because it means when Chinese consumers engage with brands from Europe, they want to know why. Why is this brand special? What makes it different? What's the history of the brand? It's a much, much more active engagement with the brand than you would see with any consumer here. This is important for the retail space. So coming back to my mom and pop store. So mom and pop stores, when I started in e-commerce a long time ago with Amazon, people were saying Amazon's going to destroy the mom and pop store. How can a mom and pop store compete with the platform, with the technology, with the investment of an Amazon or another large platform? And in most countries around the world, that is exactly what has happened. Whether you call it a mom and pop corner store, in Germany they're called the Aunt Emma store, in Spain the Ultramarinos. In every culture there's actually quite an endearing name for these stores because they're part of the fabric of retail. This is where people on the way to work buy what they're looking for in the morning, and on the way back from work they buy what they're looking for in the evening. But they've disappeared in most cultures. In China, there are 6 million corner stores. And one of the things that we're doing that I find really is true innovation is we're working with these stores and saying, you know your customer better than anyone else in your neighborhood. They come in twice a day, but you don't know what you don't know. We're going to give you access to data. What are people who live in your neighborhood buying on our platforms? Which of those products would you perhaps like to sell in your store? We're using AI to help them solve the logistic challenge of getting these kind of products to their stores. We're doing things like what I showed before with the single-serving Oreo. We're taking their data and then feeding it to the large FMCG companies of the world to say, for this channel of 6 million, you might want to develop this type of product. So this may not seem technologically very sophisticated. This is true retail innovation. This is a B2B app we built for just these channels. We're working with about 1 million of them now to enable them to buy those products that they're not selling on our platform, get them to their stores so they can sell them to their users in a seamless offline and online experience. We are actually doing this across many, many different retail formats, from the shopping mall to the home decoration store and the electronics store. We are approaching retail in a truly seamless way. We do not think about online and offline. We think about what are the needs in that specific retail channel. Is it the corner store I just mentioned? Is it the rural store? I mentioned 731 million people online, but that means there's about 650 million people in China who are not online. How do we enable them to experience this consumer transformation? So we're working with the goal of about enabling 100,000 villages in China to have access to the benefits of online e-commerce in their village, whether it's to buy normal products for daily use or to sell the products that they are producing, growing in their villages, to sell it to the rest of China. The needs for that retail channel are completely different than the ones, let's say, for the hypermarket or the supermarket. So each channel of retail, we are trying to use technology to innovate and improve the experience, but technology is just a tool in how we do so. When I think about innovation in retail, and I think maybe that's one of my, I would say, key messages today, some of the biggest changes in retail have not been driven by technology. I think AI is going to continue to play a very large role in retail. I think it will play an ever larger role. But I think a lot of those benefits will be incremental changes, incremental things like the recommendation engine, which enabled us to tap into the long tail of products. But some of the boldest decisions have not been technology-driven. They have been decisions in retail space driven by business leaders. So one example would be what we're doing, investing in mom and pop stores instead of trying to take their business. Another example would be what Amazon did very early on in creating a single detail page in which every single product, whether it was being sold by Amazon or by another competitor of Amazon on the platform, appears on a single page. That was a gut-driven, instinctual decision by, in that case, Jeff Bezos, because he said that's the right thing for the consumer. No AI informed that decision. That decision, in my opinion, has had a bigger change and impact on the online retail space than any technology decision I've seen. Very similar case in our company. When we launched C2C, back then competing with eBay, we launched it with a chat functionality. The chat functionality was there because Chinese wanted to interact directly about the product. And very famously back then, the leader of eBay said, they don't know what they're doing because if you can use a chat functionality, you're going to go around Alibaba and not earn the commission fee. Our founder back then, Jack Ma, said, that may be right, but I don't care because we're going to build the platform the way the Chinese consumers want to interact in a C2C space. And if that doesn't work for the normal business model, well, then we'll change the business model. And he eliminated all fees on the platform. Since we're business, we still had to come up with a solution, which has led to the reality today that Alibaba's main source of revenue and profit is not e-commerce commissions, it's advertising, enabling people to discover products through advertising. So my point is with these two examples, innovation in retail, I think AI has a key role to play there, but there will always be the role of the business leader taking fairly emotional gut decisions about a dramatic change to how to approach retail, and I do not see that going away. I think a key issue will be how does AI and the opaque nature, the black box nature of deep learning in AI, for example, how does that work together with the human business leader making those kind of decisions? This will be the key challenge in retail in the near future, in my opinion. Another example is our fresh food market, Hima. This is an omni-channel approach to retail we've built from scratch. It works in a way that I think only could work in China right now. I hope we'll get to that point here in Europe. The smartphone is so prevalent that we can introduce a store in China where you cannot buy unless you are using the app. You could not pay for the food in the store, even if you physically walked in, if you're not using the app. If I tried to do that here in London, I would get into a lot of trouble. People say you're discriminating against people who don't have apps. In China, it's not even an issue because everyone is using their app, not just to find things like we do, but for payment and every other thing. So the app becomes the glue. We use these stores, they're hyper-local stores where you can order live seafood, raw, fresh seafood, prepared, and within 30 minutes, in a 3-kilometer radius, we will deliver that to you. So a completely seamless experience. Do you want to come in the store and choose it? Do you want to order on the app? Do you want to have it delivered to your office and pick up some in the store? Do you want to come and eat it in the store? It doesn't matter. It's up to you because it's a seamless retail experience where we are using data, using AI to inform in the background, but for the user, a seamless experience. This example is actually one of my favorites. So this is people self-selecting their shrimp in one of our stores because we knew that in China, people want to self-select their own shrimp. So most online companies presented with this data would say, oh, we've got to find some way with technology to enable people to self-select their shrimp. We're going to build augmented reality. We're going to build some sort of solution that will enable them to do so. What did our leaders do? Setting up this channel, they simply said, what's the best technology to enable people to self-select shrimp? It's a tank of water full of shrimp. This is not high-end technology. It's just a very good solution. But that means you need a lot of them. So you have to create a lot of local stores, which is what we're doing. So innovation in retail, again, it's never about technology. It's always about the consumer wants something and I want to give them a better experience. Which technology is it? The tank of water or high-end deep learning? It can be a combination of all of those, but you need to be in control of what you're trying to do. With Intersport, we built a store that is very much in the AI space. We have AI motion sensor cameras looking out of this store, trying to detect person's age and sex to make them offers in the window of products they might want to buy, which they could buy through a QR code immediately. We have a smart shoe mirror where we look at the shoes they're wearing and offer them accessories. We offer them the ability to buy products and have them delivered to their home, again, within a 3-kilometer radius. So this is a case where we're using quite a bit of technology to make this happen. We have Snap to Shop. Snap to Shop is our visual search tool. Actually, my colleague Shipan will be discussing this in more detail on the Live to Lab stage at 12:30. So anyone who wants to hear more about the pure technology of what we do in AI, I would encourage you to join that session. We have fully automated stores here with the Tao Cafe. So of course, these things are heavy users of AI technology. but always focused on a specific consumer need. My last example, in the hotel space, we built a hotel, Fly Zoo Hotel. It is a hotel where it is driven by AI and tools. Facial recognition in the elevator, facial recognition to open your doors, these little robots that will deliver your room service to you. We're not in the hotel business, we're in the travel business, but we built this to test the technology and apply it to the hotel consumer usage case to say, how can we help to improve that experience? So this is how we approach technology. Across any kind of channel, what can technology enable us to do? What are we trying to do for the consumer? How do we combine the human and the consumer aspect? And this hotel has 200 rooms. There's the same number of humans working in it as in any other average 200-room hotel. So it's not about eliminating the human jobs, but we're having the humans in the hotel work on the things that they can do best. We're allowing the machine and technology to do the things that they can do best. This is the kind of combination that we are looking for. So, car vending machines, another example of all the different things in retail you can do with technology. With that, I would like to end my speech. I'm looking forward to a good panel discussion and appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Terry. Amazing. So if you didn't know about Alibaba and all the stuff it does and did, you certainly do now. I love the idea of the mum and dad store actually being saved by e-commerce rather than destroyed by it. We're going to go into our panel just now, and we've got some brilliant innovators who are going to join Terry on stage. Please welcome Alberto Rizzoli from V7. Come to the stage, please. Jenny Griffiths from Snaptech. And your moderator for today, she's an AI consultant and journalist, Georgia Lewis Anderson. Thanks very much.
Hello, I'm very excited to be using this Britney-style mic today. Thanks so much for that. Really interesting to see how Alibaba is kind of taking over the world with convenience. We're going to be discussing the future of retail. Things are changing rapidly. We're going to talk a bit about how we buy now, and I'm very excited to be joined by some luminary minds in that space. Jenny here is kind of an OG of visual search. You've got Snaptech, which is 8 years old now, which is kind of old school in this space, and doing some really exciting things. And we've got Alberto from V7, which is using AI to allow businesses to get products quicker, really. So let's get into it. As I understand, Alberto, you're using AI to allow businesses to find their products quicker. But we were chatting earlier about the question of if the retail space is dead, which you touched upon too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, some retailers are definitely going towards an ultimate end. There's certainly a lack of authenticity in a lot of retailers today, and technology can help bolster that or it can help destroy that. What we do at V7 is we enable retailers to understand what's happening inside their stores using AI, running either on the existing security cameras that they have or on cameras placed on the shelves. And this can enable consumers to find products inside someone's store even when they're outside of it by simply making a search online, or for the retailer to understand which consumer are picking up which product. So going back to Terry's example of customizing mom and pop shop stores, this would allow these smaller businesses to understand what do people want in their neighboring stores and try to better customize themselves, all using eyes, so to speak, within their stores that understand and catalog this information.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly exciting, the idea of putting really emerging technologies in the hands of the corner shop owners and the independent retailers, which I think we all want more of as consumers, and are quite sad about them going. Another thing that we touched upon before was the idea that all the technology can't work without the guts of humans and their instincts, and how important it is not just to be led by data sets, but really human experience. Would you agree, Terry?
Well, I do. I mean, for me, there's always this risk that data will often give you incremental optimizations, right? I mean, that's how some of the best AI works. It takes very large data sets and develops an algorithm which can optimize to match the curve of that solution. That is optimization within optimization within optimization. That's always going to lead to an incrementally improved solution. It's not going to lead to let's throw everything out and start fresh and do something completely crazy, because that's not how an optimization mathematically works. So I do think there's going to be this lot of space for that. I think what will be fascinating is the companies who are able to help, or the companies who are able to do a mixture of the two. And how will that be? How will it be when a business leader says, I want to do something crazy and bold, but the very expensive, very successful AI solution is saying, don't do that. Who's going to win out? Or the AI solution tells them to do it, but he has to explain to his workforce, to his investors, to his peers, saying, I've decided to do this, and they say, why? And he says, well, because the black box told me to. That's difficult. How do you motivate people with that? So I think the teams, the companies, the businesses who will be able to use technology without losing that ability to make that bold change and transformation, be it retail or other space, these are going to be the winners.
We've heard the word disruption a lot over the past couple of days. I don't know if you guys have. How can we disrupt stuff? How can we radically change things using technology to meet the global goals, to make us all live a better life? And I suppose what you're saying is it's about disrupting as gently as possible, like without kind of ruining things. Would you agree?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. I would say disrupt solely to improve.
Yeah.
Never disruption for disruption's sake is nonsense. I would never do that. We would never do that. You disrupt to improve the consumer experience. But I think most people agree with that. The question is how, and how radical the disruption is the right level.
So what you're working on is very exciting. You told me you're doing some cool stuff with the BAFTAs, visually recognizing the clothes on the red carpet. How has visual search changed over the past 8 years, and how are you disrupting stuff for the greater good at the moment?
Yeah, so over the past 8 years, it's changed hugely. You can imagine, so the company started around kind of 2011 officially. Unofficially, it was around 2008. So you can imagine 2010 walking into retail and going, right, AI is going to change the way that people shop. People thought I was kind of crazy.
They're like, what are you banging on about, mate?
Yeah, so back in the day, I'd say visual search, it was kind of part SaaS, kind of black box licensing, and it was part actually consulting and telling retailers, right, this is what you need to do, considering the approach. Coming back to coaching people in, it's not disruption for disruption's sake. These are the actual business benefits. So that's probably how the visual search industry has changed the most over the past 8 years, I'd say, is people actually understanding what they want to use it for rather than just going, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could take a photo on your mobile phone? It's like, whoa, who's actually going to use that? What's the use case? And then, I think the industry itself in the past 2 years has changed the fastest that I've ever seen anything change. So you've got the kind of bigger players like Alibaba kind of coming into the visual search space, making it a bit more commonplace. And for the smaller kind of more specialist visual search companies, we're able to go, right, we've got these big companies changing this user behavior, which is incredibly difficult for a small company to do. And now how can we work hand in hand with everyone else to be able to kind of disrupt this industry for good?
And how are you working hand in hand with everyone else to disrupt the industry?
So we are very much kind of B2B licensing company rather than being direct to consumers, because as you guys know, trying to build your own consumer brand is very difficult, especially in a fickle market like fashion. So we license purely to publishers and retailers. So for the BAFTAs, for instance, we were able to work with them to make the red carpet shoppable in 5 minutes. We work with publishers around, right, if Meghan Markle's seen wearing this outfit, how can they get a bit of get the look content out there in half an hour instead of 6 hours? So really working with them on optimizing workflows rather than going off and doing our own thing.
And if I see Meghan Markle wearing a jumper that I want, how can I get it in half an hour?
So at the moment, if you read Marie Claire magazine, you'll see
Okay.
a ton of articles on it. But also, you can use our website and our app. I don't want to do a horrible plug though.
Yeah, no, it was interesting that you said the biggest use case of your app was when people are reading Vogue or like other designer magazines and they can't afford something and they want an alternative.
Yeah.
And you touched upon that in that is AI that we don't even know that we're using. How do you see that? How do you see what we want becoming more customized in the future?
So this is where big data definitely comes in. I mentioned the example before of the single portion Oreo. That was an example of consumers, in this case mom and pop stores. The mom and pop stores hearing from their walk-in consumers, I'd like an Oreo, but I just want to buy one, right? And you normally wouldn't do that. That mom and pop shop could never have gotten that message to Oreo, this huge FMCG company. But 6 million of them, 1 million of them speaking through, in this case, Alibaba, was able to make that voice heard. But the recognition of it was, in the end, data. We work with a lot of brands to say, we are seeing this particular demand either in the data or being voiced. Snickers, a very popular brand around the world, but the data was telling us that the Chinese would like Szechuan-style Snickers. Now, if we didn't have very spicy Snickers,
I was
we would
wondering
never
what they
sell
were.
that here. But with the data coming in, we were able again to convince Snickers, you should really look into producing a Szechuan-style Snickers, which they do and is now a bestseller. So it's the combination of the data, but also the relationship of being able to get the voice of the consumer heard. And I think, again, that's the combination that will be key. Not the data alone, not saying we want this, but about being able to back up a proposal to a brand, to a retail chain or whoever, but back it up with data.
Alberto, I love seeing stuff on Instagram and buying it as much as the next person does. But we've been discussing, and quite rightly, the goals and how we can all work towards a more sustainable future and how important it is to look after our planet. I was on a panel last week where the editor of Glamour said if we buy something, we need to be wearing it 30 times. How can we use AI to ensure that our shopping is more sustainable in the future?
We're going towards a future where things are delivered to your door more and more. And this is not necessarily a good thing when it comes to the amount of packaging that we're creating. If we play our cards right with technology and we allow the setting up of a small store, say whether it is a local warehouse/store or a true corner shop, a mom and pop shop, then you should be able to purchase most of the things that you need on a daily basis, or maybe something that you need forever, within a small radius from your home. The way you can do this is by automating a lot of the operations within a store, from restocking it to checkout, and this is something that AI can do for the most part today, not with every product, and it's still fairly expensive. But in 5 years' time, we can imagine a future where stores are always a short walk away. They always contain the products that you want, not something that a larger company is trying to push to you, and they're personalized for the neighborhoods around them. This would also reduce the amount of packaging that you need because products are moving off the shelf faster, reduces packaging, solves a lot of sustainability problems in total. It's still a future that requires quite a bit of shaking of the current paradigm. There's mega malls and shopping centers today that have an uncertain future within this model, and it's not quite clear how they're going to survive in different parts of the world. In China, they will continue to thrive more likely. In Europe, who knows?
Terry, do you think that will require big, I don't know, corporations, technology companies, working with local governments to ensure local retailers are able to keep those shops?
So, we do a lot of things, as I mentioned, with our rural Taobao thing of helping villages that, aren't necessarily a short-term for-profit initiative. It is doing something we consider important, but we're also not a charity. We do things because in the end it has a business potential because you're improving the consumer experience. So everything we do in the end, we're confident we'll have a chance of doing so. So I think it would not be smart to say we have to save the high street, so we're going to do things and work with the government to find ways to ensure the high street must be saved. The only way to save the high street is to transform the high street so the consumers say, this is adding value to my experience. And that's what a lot of companies are working on, a lot of technology. A lot of companies here in the UK are spending a lot of very important resources to do so. But it has to be driven by trying to make that experience better, consumers saying, I like it, but I'd like a little more of this, and keep changing it. It cannot be mandated from above, in my opinion. That will not work. I think what would help is, for the retail algorithm, there are really 4 key variables. The first one is selection, convenience, price, and experience. Every retail experience, offline, online, or mixtures thereof, are always in some way, shape, or form saying, what is the role of selection in my business? Do I need a huge selection? Then AI and cloud services and online can play a huge role because it's a much easier way to add selection. Is convenience important? So when we think of convenience, I think foolishly often think in offline or online terms. Convenience can be the self-picking shrimp solution I mentioned, so very offline, or having a store on every corner, or having great stores in the high street. But convenience can also be an AI application, an app that as soon as I open it knows exactly what I want to do and makes it really easy and fast for me to find it. Those are exactly the same things. It's just convenience. The fact that one is pure online, one is more offline, one is a mixture is completely secondary. When it comes to price, that's perhaps a variable you can't really do much about. Price is price. You just have to find the most efficient solutions, perhaps using AI logistics to improve your solution. But experience, the fourth factor in the retail algorithm, experience is the one that is completely open-ended. Every type of innovation we can drive with visual search, with other technologies, insight into the consumer, that is a completely open world to say what is the improved experience for the consumer in this channel, in this experience, in this state of mind. When it comes to experience, I think we are at the very, very beginning of the retail transformation.
When you say high street, I don't know about you guys, but I already think of big brands. I think Topshop, Urban Outfitters, JD Sports and stuff. What we're talking about here is the corner shops, the bodegas, the mom and pop stores. I never say that. So how can we make sure that this technology to allow the true mingling between the really new school cutting edge technology that's going to allow your local businesses to thrive is getting in the hands of the startups that want to ensure there's a space for their local community, but also want to operate in the new tech space?
Well, this is what we're doing in China with the mom and pop store. We're giving them access to that. But again, we have an advantage. There's 6 million.
Yeah.
So the money we spend, the time, the investment, the teams that we hire to do so, we say there's a bulk of value there, because the reason we did it also is we're convinced for the Chinese consumer in the future, the corner shop has a role to play. But is that the case here, for example, in the UK? It's a different question. There's not 6 million. Quite a few have already shut down.
Yeah.
Most countries in Europe. So I think it would be very exciting for players here, be it technology players or direct brands, to say, how do I tap into something that may look old-fashioned, but actually I believe the consumer is still looking in the future for something they can get from that, and help them to do so.
Yeah, I mean, people are always going to live somewhere, and they're probably going to want a pint of milk late at night, you know. So I guess if I was a startup here in the UK thinking about starting a retail brand, and I wanted to make it sustainable, I wanted to benefit my local community, but I also wanted to use like data sets and AI as well as I could, what advice would you give them? So
I would say push the envelope. Think beyond. In terms of expectations, your expectations, the expectations of the consumer of the past 5-10 years are not the bottom line. The bottom line is thinking forward. So if I use China as an example, I was recently speaking to a colleague in China. He said it was midnight, he was at home, his girlfriend had taken his iPhone charger. Of course, without a charger in China, you're out, because the iPhone is everything, including your wallet, your phone. So he needed a new one. He ordered it online at midnight. It got there in 35 minutes at midnight, and he was angry.
That's wild.
He said he was angry.
Yeah.
It took too long. What took you so long? I need the charger. 35 minutes, way too long at midnight. So the level of expectation on the consumer is here. We should be thinking the same way. We should be saying, how do you delight a consumer in the extreme that he's angry when you could deliver something to him in 35 minutes and say, I want you to do better?
It's really crazy to consider that. Yeah. How can we use visual search to ensure sustainability when it comes to our shopping?
I think there's a huge role for kind of product discoverability to be kind of played in sustainability, which doesn't feel like a natural alignment. But I think, especially in fashion, the way that search has evolved has been kind of based on that Amazon model that we talked about earlier of someone bought this and you might like this. And that works really, really well for things like books and electronics and cables and all those kind of things. For fashion, you don't want to be a cookie-cutter version of someone else. It's not, if someone else bought this dress, you're going to want to buy this one. So I think that actually plays a huge part in sustainability, of moving away from this kind of slavishly trend-driven society that we're in at the moment, which is, I don't know, houndstooth's in, everyone's going to wear it for a season and it's going to cost £5, and then we're going to throw it away and wear something new next season. If you're improving product discoverability as a consumer experience, you're actually able to say, look, we understand you, we know your body shape, we know your size, we know what suits you, we know what you bought in the past. Actually, yes, this is a bit more expensive, but you're going to love it and you're going to keep it for a year or two rather than a week or two. And I think that's where weirdly, visual search does have a huge part to play in sustainability. Same with if you know that there's a brand that has horrible sustainability records, if there's a brand that sells fur and you disagree with that, being able to give consumers the options to say, you know what, you like that, take a photo, we'll find you something from a similar, more sustainable, more environmentally friendly brand is something that I think consumers will be pulling towards in the next year or two.
So are you saying it's in personalization?
Yeah, personalization and just being able to wade through the noise and not just being shown the same things over and over again that you might not resonate with.
I like that because it eradicates the idea that anyone's a charity, and it turns sustainability into a kind of a business opportunity.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the way it should be viewed, I think, as it goes forward. I think it's very easy to make quick money, but the brands that are going to be here for 5, 10, 20 years, they will need sustainability at the heart of what they're doing.
Yeah. How do you think AI will be used, just on a very broad stroke, to change the way we shop in the future? I know you mentioned your Darwin thing that you're working on. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a platform that is actually opening to the public next week, and it allows immediately plugging and playing state-of-the-art models, so the understanding of humans and their activities inside almost any retail store without fine-tuning much of the data. This means that when someone walks into a store, a camera that can see people in this peripheral vision will identify 25 points of their body, understand their skeletal structure, and then the activities that they're performing. If I pick up this, it will be understood. And the data in Europe is obviously anonymized. We blur out any identifiable features on their face. And these activities are then tracked so that you get almost a video game-like experience of a retail store. This will create a new way of managing businesses, not just within the retail industry, even beyond it, in which things are much more data drivable. And I wouldn't say that they are data driven, because this creates the opportunity of understanding what your consumers want, what they're doing at the same time, and allow you to intervene. For example, someone could raise their hand in a very large retail store, and the staff clerk could be notified if they keep it up for more than 5 seconds and come and help them. This would be fantastic in a place like IKEA, where you're always looking for help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to be careful, because machine learning models, especially deep learning models, do not extrapolate. A way of understanding a neural network well is think about it as a giant compressor of data. You feed it all this data, sometimes it's terrible, sometimes it's really good, and it will compress it and make a little nugget in which it's able to repeat the most likely outcome of one input into an output. If you take that model and you run a business with it, it will never grow to outliers, and outliers are usually the source of innovation. Szechuan Snickers is an innovation. It's an outlier. It's a small number of people that said, look, this is actually quite good. A deep learning model, the sort of more frontier part of AI, will see the Szechuan Snicker and think, like, there's so little data about this. I can see so many people eating the peanut Snickers. The Szechuan Snickers is no. 30% chance of succeeding. Don't go for it. And that's where the business leadership comes in. And that's where the human trampling over the AI, or sort of superseding the AI, is going to have to take action.
Would you say it's about embracing the botness of AI instead of trying to make an AI work like a human for you then?
We are trying really hard to remove the botness.
Trying to remove the botness?
Remove the botness so that it acts more like a human, it extrapolates to new data, it makes brand new decisions. This is the cutting edge research part of machine learning that is going into reinforcement learning, that is going into basically coming up with new solutions to problems. And it's really hard, and we don't know how to operate it in business yet, but it will happen within a near-term horizon, and it's very hard to predict how this will impact business, but it will hopefully help us get more Sichuan-like sneakers and more unusual products.
Yeah, so, sorry, you're trying to get rid of the botness so you can implement the most human-like possible AI. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So much like a human would look through a camera, if you could place human brains and eyes everywhere and have these people sort of have a top-notch education, what decisions could they help you make? And right now, what they do is they just tell you what they've seen before and say, yeah, I've seen this before, and I think this is going to happen. But they will ignore sometimes what really matters, and these small outliers, and we want to make sure that these shine, because these contain probably more value than the repeatable, predictable events that happen otherwise.
It's a really exciting time, but it's a time of a lot of unknowns, I suppose, the way that we're going. Where do you see visual search going next?
So a lot of what we do is kind of the polar opposite, which is always good. And I think that's kind of healthy in AI as well, because we don't know where it's going. So what we do is focus on that kind of botanist that you referred to, where it's actually being done by humans at the moment and they don't enjoy that task. So if you take Meghan Markle wearing a dress on the red carpet as an example, when an editor writes about it, it takes them 6 to 8 hours. About half an hour to an hour is writing the copy, which is what they love doing, and then about 4 to 5 hours is spent searching for items, which is ridiculous because people shouldn't be search engines, that should be technology. So where we're kind of seeing visual search move in the kind of short, medium term, it's actually being able to say, look, humans who are doing that as a job, you shouldn't have to. You're a trained journalist, for crying out loud. Why are you looking for clothes? Use the bots, and then your job gets better. You're able to generate more content, and you're able to save money, etc., etc. I think longer term, where visual search is moving, is basically just working on accuracy, if I'm being honest. So always first say visual search is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. We pride ourselves in being able to do shape search in fashion. That's kind of our USP. But as you can imagine, if you've got your hair over your shoulder, to a human, you're able to know that that's obviously, that line's continued. To a computer, it's just a bunch of pixels. It has no idea.
For anyone that doesn't know, what is shape search?
So it's being able to look at what you're wearing and say it's got this kind of neckline, it's got this kind of waistline, hemline, this is what the sleeves are up to, and then match shapes. Whereas normally visual search just looks at attributes at a kind of higher level, like color and texture and that kind of thing. So I think where we're going to see the biggest improvements in visual search over the next kind of 5-10 years is taking out all of those false positives and false negatives, where, for instance, we're 95% accurate, which is amazing from an academic point of view.
Yeah.
But from a consumer point of view, if you take that example of the really kind of demanding consumer who wants a cable in half an hour, if 5 out of every 100 searches is going to return a hat instead of a pair of shoes, that's not going to be a technology that people want to embrace in the future. So I think that's going to be the core kind of academic research at the moment, is getting things to the level of 99.99999% rather than having those kind of fail cases built in.
Quality insurance.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're almost at the end of our session. If you want to leave us with just a parting idea about if you had to really sum up the future of retail, what would you guys say?
So retail is about human wants and needs. So the future of retail, whatever it happens, however exciting technology makes it or improves it, it'll always be ways to enable a human to better resolve, address their personal wants and needs in the way they would like to. This is the bottom line.
Yeah, I'd say more emphasis on products and less emphasis on retailers. The retailer will provide an experience and a brand to acquire these products, but ultimately people will be able to learn and discover products on multiple platforms and then acquire them in a local retailer, and they will look a lot less at the sign on top of the shop that they enter and a lot more at what's on the shelving 10 years from now.
Interesting.
I think it's about using AI in a non-creepy way to be able to personalize the retail experience, and also using technology to augment brand values, sustainability, transparency, and all these kind of values that are becoming more important to younger consumers.
Well, thank you so much for letting us all pick your brains. I hope you've enjoyed our chat, and enjoy the conference. Thanks, guys.